Welcome to live.withcode.uk/A-level. These videos are designed for anyone who wants to boost their confidence with object-oriented programming in C#, particularly people who are about to start an A-level in computer science or people who are part-way through. So well done to everyone who took part last week with the introduction challenge to create an account on GitHub and to send some code in that you've been working through. So Dan was our winner last week. I'll send out your live.withcode.uk Bluetooth headset. I'll put that in the post as soon as I can. If you want to win like Dan did, all you need to do is send either a part-finished project that I can debug in an episode or a finished project that can be added to the list of challenges on here. The idea is you choose a challenge, and I've no idea what this is going to be, but nobody sent in one to debug this week, so that means I've got to try and code this one just here. When you've done it, you just need to upload it, so create an account in GitHub, push your code to GitHub, watch last week's video for a reminder on how to do that, and then you can add your solution so that anyone else can check it and extend it and improve on it possibly. Okay, so this is this week's challenge. We'll read through it together, then I'll suggest that you pause, have a think about how you can approach it, and then I'll guide you through as far as we can get in about 20 minutes or so. So we need to create a program that accepts a year in the format, so 4 digits. The program then adds up each digit of the year together and outputs the answer. So 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 5 is 8, so the output is 8. Seems fairly simple. We've got an extension which hopefully we'll get to, but remember we want to do this in an object-oriented way. We want to do it with a graphical user interface. Have a think about how you can approach it. Pause the video now and we'll continue when you've read through the problem. Okay, so hopefully you've had a think about how you'd approach this problem. I'm going to use a Windows Forms app, .NET Framework. I don't mind if it's .NET Core or .NET Framework, but we'll create a project together. The user interface is going to be relatively simple for now. We're just going to have a button and a text box that the user can type a year in, and if they're typing something in, it always makes sense to label it so that we know what they're going to have to do. So the label is going to be static, it's not going to change at all, so we don't need to bother changing the name of it, but we do want to change the text property. So enter a year. So this text box is where they're going to type it in. We do want to change the name of it. Oops, I'm going to use the prefix txt for any text box. So txt year. Notice the camel case, the capital Y for the new word, and then we're going to do btn calculate. And then we need to change the text property to calculate. Okay, let's make that the same height. Change the size of the form. So once it has calculated, I'd like the result to be displayed in a label down here. Also want to rename this form so it says year calculator. And we're going to put another label down here. This one isn't going to be static, we want it to change with our program. So we'll just put some general instructions on to begin with. So enter a year and press calculate. And we need to change the name of this to LBL output, because that's where our result is going to go. So the program is going to read an input from this text box here, txt year. When the user presses calculate, so btn calculate, it should add up all of the digits and display the result in here. So I'd recommend that you pause the video now and just create this user interface, and then we'll make the code happen when we press calculate on here. Fab. So we want to do an object-oriented approach, so we're going to create a new class, and let's go for year calculator. So this is live coding. You'll see the mistakes I make. I just want to talk through the processes, the thought processes that go behind this program. Okay, so this class here, I would like to be able to do something like year calculator dot add up numbers, and you give it some numbers to add up numbers from year. So for example, we take a value from a text box like 2019 or 2020 this year, still living in the past, and then that will return a value that we can display. So I'd like to pass it a value as a string because that's what's going to come from this text box here, and then I would like the results to be displayed. I don't really mind what data type that is, but an integer will probably make sense. So int result equals, and then I want it to return here. So if we say what we want it to do first, we can generate a method for this, which would be rather nice. Let's see if that has worked in Year Calculator. Yeah, here we go. So we have a static, which means we don't need to create an instance of the Year Calculator class, which means we don't have to do Year Calculator YC equals new Year Calculator. Instead, we can use it statically, as in we can just access this method from inside the Year Calculator class. So the return value is an int, an integer. The name of the method is addUpNumbers, and it has one, you can pass one argument into it, it has one parameter. Okay, when we generated this, it put in a parameter name because it didn't know what it was. We're going to change that to year, and then it's going to throw an exception at the moment. We want to get rid of that. So if we say it will always return 0 for now, we'll actually implement it in a little bit. Let's go back to the code. We don't want to always use 2020. We want to get the text string from this text box. So txt year dot text, and then we want to change this label to the result. So that label was lbl output dot text is equal to result. Okay, so it says we've got an error here. We cannot implicitly convert int to string. The return value from this method is an integer. We want to convert it to a string, so we'll just do .toString. We've got another error here because we've got the name of a method, but we're not calling that method. We just need to put the parentheses, the brackets around it to make it run. Okay, so if we test it F5, whenever we press that button, it's going to always show the result as 0 because that's the value that our method returns at the moment. But we're getting somewhere. We've created a class, we've made a method with a name and a parameter, and it returns a value. What we want to do now is make it so that it reads this value, it will extract all of the individual digits, and it will add them all up. Okay, so for now we're not going to do any validation. We're just going to assume it's a valid string, which is always a bad idea. It'd be nice if we have time to put that validation in afterwards, but we'll see how far we can get. We're going to use a for loop to iterate through each character in this string. So for int I equals 0, I is less than year.length, I++, which means increase I by 1. So this is just counting using the variable I, starting at 0, and if year is a 4-digit date like it's supposed to be, then this will repeat 4 times. Okay, so we need to be able to get the character at position I, and then we want to convert that to an integer. Now, this might be problematic because we don't want to get the ASCII value, we want to get the integer value. Remember ASCII, American Standard code for information interchange, I think like the capital A is 65 or something like that. We don't want to get the ASCII code, we want to just actually convert it. So how do we do that? Integer.parse, can you do that? Or int dot, yeah, here we go. So we're using the data type int as a class, and inside that class we have a static method called parse, which means you can give it a string and it will attempt to convert it into an integer. Okay, so what have we got here. It says cannot convert from character to string. So we'll need to convert that from an individual character to a string. There we go. So that should give us the integer version of each individual character. And we want to add that up each time. So outside of the loop, let's make a variable called total and set it to 0 at the start. And then each time we go through each character, we're going to increase total by the value in here. Now, predict what will happen when we run it. I can spot a logic error, but I'm not going to explain it just yet. Let's say 2020, so we would expect the results to be 4, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but it says 0. Pause the video and see if you can work out why that's the case. Okay, so the result was always 0 here because even though we've hopefully calculated the right total, we're always just returning a value of 0. We need to return total. So hopefully now if we put 2020 in, the answer should be 4. Hooray! Let's try it with 2021. The answer is 5. Yeah, fab. Okay, so we can have a look at the extension, which says they can guess the integer value. But first, I think it would be worthwhile doing some validation because you should be able to spot if you put anything that isn't a integer, this is going to crash. So that is because we're trying to pass the value of a parameter that isn't an integer. So this line might crash. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to surround all of the code that might crash with try, and then we need a catch clause in here. So this code will try and run, and if it fails, then this code will run instead. So let's say return 0 instead. And we probably want to display an error message. So let's use one of those. Oh, we don't have a message box in C#, do we? I was thinking VB. Yeah. So we have got a problem here. We've got a choice. If we put in something silly, it will say 0 here. You might want to make it display an error message, in which case we'd probably want to do the exception handling on this line instead. So let's have a look in our year calculator. Let's take out our exception handling, get rid of all of that, and just be aware that if we do type anything in that's not an integer, then it will throw an exception, and then we can catch that exception here. So try, and then catch, and then this time, because we're in form 1, we'll be able to access this label LBL output, and we can say, where did it go? Here we go. LBL output dot text equals error, please enter a valid date. Fab. I wish it auto-corrected with the correct capitalization. Let's give it a try. So let's test it with a valid input, 5156. And if we put in some text, it catches the error and it displays an error message. Fab. So I'm going to pause the video here. I would recommend that you try this extension if you want to continue with this. I'll push this code to GitHub and I'll submit it onto Challenge 30 if you want to have a go at this. So see if you can develop it so that you can test. They can have 3 attempts. If the mod division is 0, they get a point. If it isn't, then they can guess again up to 3 attempts. Also correct that spelling mistake, sorry about that. Okay, so remember, you can win a prize next week if you do any of the challenges. It doesn't have to be this one from this video. The GCSE prizes are some small in-ear headphones. They're okay, but they're cheap and I'm not going to say they're cheap and nasty. They're amazing. They're great prizes. But the A-level prizes are really, really good. I'd quite like to keep them. over-ear, really nice Bluetooth headphones. So see how far you can get. This week I will be on Vivox offering support to A-level students on object-oriented programming. So I'll post a link in the description and on live.withcode.uk/A-level. If you need any support, do get in touch. I don't want to sit there and nobody get in touch. I'm giving up my time. I want to be able to support A-level students. It doesn't matter which school you're from. I'll do my best to try and help. Thanks very much for listening. Look after yourselves, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.